money is one of those things that nobody teaches you, but you're supposed to be able to know. And money and shame are so deeply linked. And there's a unique type of shame reserved for things that we're supposed to be able to do, or we think we're supposed to be able to do. And something with as much of a taboo as money just wasn't being talked about so much. So I started talking about it online. I saw sort of where social media was going, and I thought, well, I'm learning about how to do, makeup tutorials on social media. I wonder if I could have educational money content in there as well. And that was sort of around the same time that money was starting to be talked about online, but it was still fairly new. And so I started doing that on Instagram in 2019, and I had a blog and everything. And yeah, it just kind of grew from there. In 2022, I wrote my first book, Good with Money, which is sort of my contribution to the financial my contribution to the personal finance literature, which is kind of a take on a standard money book that sort of takes you from A to B, but with a money psychology lens. The year before that, I'd gone back to uni to do some postgraduate study with a university in the US to study financial psychology, looking at why we do the things we do with money, why money is so emotional rather than mathematical. It's like 20% mathematical, the rest all happens up here. And so that was a really important project for me to kind of consolidate everything that I'd learned myself and everything I'd learned through my studies to put something out there that people could, read A to B, and it would meet them where they were at, where other books weren't. And a lot of people say that to me. They're like, yours is the only one that's spoken about, this specific part. A lot of money books, they touch on money mindset and relationship with money, but in a very small chapter at the beginning, and then it's very numbers heavy. What I was sort of seeing is that people needed something further back than that before they got to that next stage. So I did that, and that went really well. That was published in, I think, 6 different languages, which I never really expected. I was like, wow, why is Thailand translating my book? But apparently it's a global thing. Money crosses borders, and it doesn't matter your background. We all have to deal with it. And then more recently, I've been working on my second book, which is called The Wardrobe Project, which is a slight departure from what I was doing before, in that it's more in the sort of style adjacent space. But while it sounds like it's about, clothes and style, which it is, it's actually more about shopping and why we buy and consumerism in the fashion industry, and the kind of deeply emotional relationship that a lot of women have with our wardrobes, and how it can keep us in a buying cycle and keep us outsourcing our identity and our confidence to consumption. So that's what I've been working on lately.
Interesting. And there's such a connection between our finances and mental health, and like you're talking about, it's something we're not taught about. We get thrown out into the world, and we're expected to be able to just work it out, and people don't share this information. So it's crazy, and it's a really difficult thing. And money, there's so many taboos with it, and so many things we hold on to, and so many fears that come around it, and it can be, I think it's more difficult than ever with, where the world's at now, how expensive things are. And a lot of people, can't even make ends meet. And I don't blame them. It's like, it's so hard. I don't even understand how some people are making ends meet with all of the different, obstacles that are in place.
And that's sort of where the mathematical and the emotional collide. A lot of people go, oh, it's all emotional. It's all what you do. And obviously, particularly in the current economy, that's not true. As you say, there's real difficulty out there. But I think what's really interesting alongside that is that even if there isn't a mathematical difficulty, so many people are still in financial difficulty because we were never taught how to manage it effectively. We weren't taught how to prepare for recessions. We weren't taught how to make decisions that relate to our current earning potential and our future earning potential. We weren't really taught to be in the driver's seat of our finances. It's always been quite passive. And then when difficulty comes along, we're not equipped with any tools, mental or mathematical, to deal with that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So you're saying there's a big emotional side to it, to how it affects it? Like there's a portion that's mathematical, but there's a part where the emotional side will affect our ability to make money and how we spend?
Yeah, it affects kind of every part of money. I mean, yes, there's of course a mathematical side. If your rent is $500 and you have only been paid $300, you're not mindsetting your way out of that, no matter how many gurus will tell you that you can. That's an objective problem. But the subjective element sort of comes into everything that you have internalized about money since you were probably about 7 years old. A lot of our money beliefs, well, most of our money beliefs are actually formed, before we're 10. And that's observed from the world around us, the narratives that we absorb, the way that our parents behave with money, the things that we heard about money, and just the way that we observed something. It's not necessarily what we objectively experience, because we see this in siblings all the time. It's not whether you grew up rich or whether you grew up poor. It's, don't get me wrong, those things can definitely have a bearing, but with that mindset piece, it really comes down to the way that you perceived it and how you experienced that financial aspect. And yeah, like I said, with siblings, there can be two siblings that grow up in the exact same household with the exact same things provided for them. And one of them goes on to be a rampant saver who really struggles to spend money. And the other one goes on to really struggle with holding on to money and earning money. And there's a lot of like self-worth tied in with all of that stuff as well. So it's the way that they experienced it rather than what actually happened. A lot of parents will worry that they can't give their kids a healthy money mindset because they might be experiencing financial difficulty. But you absolutely can, because it's all about how that is dealt with and how that is spoken about. It can be spoken about in a way that still sets them up with a positive mindset. It doesn't have to be, I have to have loads of money to be able to give my children a healthy money mindset. What often happens, and I think has happened for a lot of people experience it, if they didn't have the things they wanted or needed when they were growing up, they'll then over provide for their children, thinking that that will bridge the gap. But again, the way that that money is experienced, if you are giving them everything, but there's still a lot of conflict around money in the home, that's still going to impact their money mindset. It doesn't matter how much money they have. Even if they're finishing school and wandering into a trust fund, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have a healthy relationship with money, even if that mathematical piece is taken care of. It really comes down to, and look, the majority of us aren't finishing school and walking into a trust fund. The majority of people's parents are making it work, and then we're going and getting jobs, and we're dealing with the same, economic circumstances and the same, job availability and slow wage growth and all of those things. But it's the way that money is, it's the sort of collective relationship with money, the way that money is talked about, the way that the overall feeling in the home of money, all of that can transfer onto you from a young age. And then that sort of creates a blueprint for the way that you view everything else that happens with money. So if you have this relationship with money that's formed from a very young age, and then when you're 16, you get your first job and you find out that one of your colleagues is being paid more than you, or you go into the workplace and you really struggle to earn money where other people in your friendship group aren't so much, or you lose money, like you lose money on the street, or you lend money to a friend and they don't give it back. Any then objective negative experience with money, or positive, is then viewed through that lens. And so our mindset is sort of churning that story up into something we can understand. And so using that self-worth example that I touched on before, if there's something to do with deserving, not feeling deserving of money, or your self-worth around money and other things, if you then run into an experience like, oh, I'm not being paid as much as a coworker, or oh, I asked for a pay rise and my boss said no. For some people with a healthy money mindset, that might mean maybe this job isn't right for me because my worth isn't being seen here. But for somebody else, it might be, oh my God, I'm not good enough. I'll never earn more money. I'm always going to struggle. And then you take that into your personal finances and the way you're spending and saving. And, particularly with spending, there's a lot of shame around spending. The traditional personal finance world will tell you that if you spend more than you earn, or if you don't know where your money's going, it's all because of you and it's because there's something wrong with you. It's not entirely true. Sorry, not entirely true. It's not true at all. It's not true at all. What's actually happening there is, let's use the self-worth example again. If somebody has a series of events that have made them feel that they don't deserve money, what we can actually do is create a norm where money is chaotic, because it's almost a sense of learned helplessness, or we get familiar with that norm. So we might spend money in a way that isn't necessarily conducive to financial health, but it's because that's our comfort zone. The difficulty, the crawling to payday becomes that comfort zone. And then we almost get very comfortable with saying we'll be better next month, but then we go, oh, nah. And this was a cycle I was in for ages. I kept going, right, every single month I say I'm going to be better. And then I'm crawling to payday again because of various things, low income, but also the decisions I was making and the way that I was organizing my money. And that became the comfort zone. Every time I had an opportunity to go, am I going to be better next month? The familiarity that my brain wanted to pull me back to was this state of chaos, because I knew that I could survive it, because you always do. And if that's also what you've grown up with as well, you don't know any different. A lot of the time we have a very limited worldview of what's actually possible with money and what's possible for us with money. And so our beliefs can then inform our behavior that creates the same set of circumstances over and over again, because that's all we know and that's where our brain is most comfortable.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So it's so similar to, what you see in patterns of dating or, other areas where the very thing that you're not wanting to have happen will happen if you don't consciously try and move away from that conditioning. And it feels like an impossible cycle to get out of.
Exactly. Dating's a really good example, because with money, it's often helpful to use other examples, because money is numbers. We're like, just don't spend it or whatever. But we do the same with dating. Just stop dating shit guys. Yeah, but there's a worth piece that keeps that cycle happening, because that's all you know and that's all you feel you deserve. It's not, nothing is objective when the human brain is at the helm.
Makes so much sense. Yeah, that makes so much sense. It's such an interesting topic, and I guess if I look at examples from my own life in the past, and I'm still not great with it, but the thing for me was always feeling like I had to conserve money because I was terrified that it would run out. So I was looking at it as a scarce resource, and I guess if I look at my career, that was an outcome of the career I've gone on down, where I was entrepreneurial in the entertainment industry, would make money, not make money for a long time. Everything was more unpredictable than, most industries. And that became my experience, where I would constantly, have money, then I'd run out of it, and I'd be holding on to it for dear life. And it made the whole experience so unpleasant. And I think that probably led to missing opportunities to make more money, and a whole mindset that you can't even, see yourself. Is that a pretty common sort of thing, like that example?
Yeah, there's two sort of really common threads. One is, as you say, hold on to money for dear life, hoard it. You might struggle to spend it. You might struggle to take risks that may make you more money. And then the other side is sort of not being able to hold on to it. And sometimes people can have both of these at the same time. I kind of experienced both ends of the spectrum. In my spending behavior, I really struggled to hold on to money. If money came in, there's that norm that it will run out. So you might as well spend it on something now while you have it. This is what keeps a lot of people spending money in a mathematically illogical way, because again, it's not just a mathematical thing. If you've got rent due later, just keep the money, just don't spend it. If you don't need it, just don't spend it. But when psychologically you're so much more familiar with that money running out, you see that money as like it's slipping through your fingers all the time. So you spend it while you have it. Because that's the only opportunity that you have to experience money in that way. But at the same time, this is how money beliefs can be very conflicting and create imbalanced outcomes. At the same time, I had a similar experience to you, where I felt like money was going to... Sorry, I don't know what's happening with my voice.
No problem.
Always at the worst time.
Yeah.
But also similar to you, I would sometimes feel the need to hold on to money and not take risks in, for example, a job sense. A really good example of, a way that your money mindset can impact your adult finances and the way that you perceive money and the way that you behave with it is the way that you were taught about jobs and income and salary. I definitely grew up around a mindset of, well, it's better than no job. And so I would stay in that job that wasn't giving me a pay rise, that wasn't paying me enough, that, there may be a better opportunity elsewhere, because I felt like, well, I have to hold on to that income. I have to hold on to that option because that's all I have. Even though in my actual spending behavior, I struggled to hold on to it. So it's sort of this push-pull that, can create, and people will come to me with all kinds of, wacky financial situations, and they'll go, I'm doing this, but it doesn't make sense because I'm doing this. And that's how multiple conflicting beliefs can create a difficult to manage financial outcome. Yeah.